An alien kid pointed a knife at me, then collapsed in tears. The diplomatic station orbited a planet called Vexera Prime, and Lieutenant Amber Hayes stood in the observation deck watching the purple clouds swirl below her feet. Ached from standing all day processing refugee applications, but she could not leave yet, because 3 more families waited in the corridor outside. The door hissed open, and a small figure burst through, moving faster than Amber expected, and something metal flashed. In the dim light, a knife. The blade was crude, made from scrap metal, and the handle was wrapped in torn cloth. But the little alien holding it trembled so badly that Amber worried the child might cut themselves before anyone else. The kid could not have been more than 7 cycles old in their species terms, with large golden eyes that took up half their face and skin, that shimmered between blue and green depending on how the light hit it. And those eyes were filled with terror. Amber raised her hand, slowly keeping them open and visible because she had been trained for situations like this, though never with someone so young and so frightened. The child spoke in their native language, words tumbling out in a rush mixed with sobs, and Amber's translator earpiece struggled to keep up with the emotional speech threats. Warnings, desperate pleas, all mixed together. Other humans would have called for security or activated the emergency protocols. But Amber had spent 3 years on this station, and she had learned that sometimes the manual did not have the right answers. She lowered herself slowly to one knee, bringing her eyes level with the child's, and she kept her hands visible and open. The kid's grip on the knife tightened, and Amber could see their small fingers shaking. Her translator finally caught up with the child's words. "Do not take my sister. They are separating us. Humans always separate families. I will not let you." The words hit Amber harder than she expected because she had seen the reports and she knew what had happened on the colonies where other human administrators had made decisions based on efficiency rather than compassion. She spoke softly, letting her translator convert her words into the child's language. I'm not going to separate you from your sister, and nobody here is going to do that either." The child's eyes narrowed with suspicion because they had heard promises before. "You lie, all humans lie. My friend said humans took his parents and sent them to different planets and he never saw them again." Amber felt her chest tighten because she knew that story was probably true, and she hated that her species had given these refugees reasons to fear. She stayed on her knee even though her leg was starting to cramp. "What is your name?" The child hesitated, then whispered. Amber nodded. "My name is Amber and I work here to help families stay together. And I know you have heard bad things about humans, but I promise you that I will not separate you from your sister." Kiv's whole body shook and tears started rolling down their face, leaving wet trails that caught the light. "They sent us to different rooms. They took Zila away and said I had to wait here, and when families get separated, they never see each other again." Amber understood now. The intake process required medical screening in separate rooms based on age, and nobody had explained this to Kiv. Because the staff assumed the translators would handle it, she kept her voice gentle. "Zila is getting a health check right now to make sure she is okay, and you were supposed to get one too. But in different rooms because the equipment is different sizes for different ages, and after both checks are done, you will be back together." Kiv stared at her, and the knife lowered slightly. "Truly?" Amber nodded. "Truly. And if you want, I can take you to see Zila right now so you know she is safe." The child's face crumpled, and suddenly the knife clattered to the floor, and Kiv collapsed forward. Amber caught the small body without thinking, and Kiv sobbed into her shoulder with the kind of desperate crying that came from weeks of held-back fear. She held the child, gently rubbing small circles on their back, while Kiv's whole body shook with each sabother. Station workers appeared in the doorway, and Amber waved them back with a sharp look, because Kiv did not need to see more uniforms right now. It took several minutes before the crying slowed and Kiv pulled back slightly, their golden eyes red and swollen. "I'm sorry, I did not mean to threaten you. I was just so scared." Amber shook her head. "You are protecting your sister, and that is not something to apologize for, and you are brave." Kiv, the child, looked doubtful. "Brave people do not cry." Amber smiled. "Sadly, the bravest people I know cry all the time because bravery is not about not being scared, and it is about doing what you have to do. Even when you are terrified, and you were terrified, but you still tried to protect Zila." Kiv processed this, looking at Amber with new uncertainty. "Are all humans like you?" Amber wished she could say yes, but she had to be honest. No, and some humans are kind and some are not. Just like any species, but I can promise you that while you are here, I will make sure you and Zila stay together. She stood up slowly and offered her hand to give the child. Hesitated, then took it, and their small hand felt impossibly fragile in Amber's grip. They walked together down the corridor, and other refugees pressed against the walls, watching with wide eyes because word had already spread that a child had pulled a knife on a human officer. Amber ignored the stares and kept walking until they reached the medical wing inside. Zila sat on an examination table, kicking her legs while a medical technician checked her vitals, and when she saw Kiv, she jumped down and ran over. The two siblings crashed together in a hug, and Zila started scolding Kiv in rapid-fire words that the translator could barely keep up with. "You ran away again. You promised you would not run away." "I was so worried." Kiv just held their sister tighter. Amber watched them and felt something shift in her chest, because she had joined the diplomatic corps thinking she would negotiate treaties and forge alliances between species, but this moment right here mattered more than any treaty she had ever read. The medical technician approached Amber quietly. "The separation protocol needs to be updated, and we have had 3 incidents this week with families panicking because nobody explained the process properly." Amber nodded. "I will draft new guidelines tonight, and from now on, families stay together during intake, unless there is a medical emergency, and we explain everything before it happens." The technician looked relieved. "Thank you, Lieutenant." Over the next few hours, Amber personally processed Kiv and Zila's applications, and she made sure they understood every step. And when it came time to assign them quarters, she pulled some strings to get them a family unit instead of the standard shared barracks. As the siblings explored their new quarters, touching everything with wonder, Kiv turned back to Amber. "Why are you helping us?" Amber had been asked that question before by other refugees who had learned to expect the minimum from those in power: because you deserve help, and because you are children who have been through something terrible, and because someone should have helped you. Sooner, Kiv studied her face as if trying to memorize it. "When I grow up, I want to be like you." Amber felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. "Then be kind and be brave and protect the people who cannot protect themselves." Zila tugged on Amber's sleeve. "Will you visit us?" Amber smiled. "Every day until you are settled, and after that, whenever you want." She left them there, exploring their new home. And as she walked back to her office, she thought about all the policies that needed changing, and all the training that needed updating, and all the ways the system failed vulnerable people. But she also thought about Kiv's golden eyes and the way the child had tried to be brave, and she knew that every small act of kindness mattered. The next morning, Amber submitted her report along with recommendations for new intake procedures, and she attached Kiv's case as an example of what went wrong when efficiency took priority over compassion. 3 weeks later, the new protocols were approved. Station-wide, families would no longer be separated during processing, and trained counselors would explain every step before it happened, and special accommodations would be made for traumatized children. Amber visited Kiv and Zila regularly, and she watched them slowly start to heal. Kiv stopped flinching at every sudden movement, and Zila started laughing again. Other humans on the station asked Amber why she spent so much time with 2 random refugee kids when she had important work to do. She never bothered explaining because they would not understand. Months passed, and Kiv started school, and the child excelled in every subject, especially conflict resolution. Zila joined a youth group and made friends with kids from 6 different species. Amber attended Kiv's first school presentation, where the child spoke about the importance of understanding and patience between species. After the presentation, Kiv ran up to Amber. "Did you hear me? Did I do good?" Amber hugged the child close. "You did amazing." That night, as Amber sat in her quarters looking out at the stars, she thought about the moment when a terrified child had pointed a knife at her. She thought about how easy it would have been to respond with force or anger. She thought about how many times that probably happened across human space. And she thought about how different things could be if more people chose compassion first. Her communicator beeped with a new message. It was from Kiv. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." Amber smiled and typed back, "You were never invisible, Kiv, and I am proud of you." She looked back out at the stars and knew that humanity's future among the alien species would not be determined by superior technology or military might. It would be determined by moments like these, by choices made in core.